thousands of years I lay dormant. Who has disturbed my...
Oh wait, it's you guys. Give me a second. Chilly. Anyway, hey, what's up, how's it going? It's the boy on Sice in the morning, or even depending on where we are right now. Instead of coming at you with a new video, it's going to be the 2 parts full of what if, well, no, not a what if, but the Broly movie rewrite from a little bit ago. This one, the whole thing is edited, and I kind of like re-voiced the thing because I have a kind of better mic now. So yeah, that's gonna be fun. Little tweaks, very minor tweaks, but yep. Anyway, so today I'm coming at you with this new video. You know how it goes. And next three videos will be, they should be what if Shinra, Black Exile Shinra, Sage Mode Early 7, because Jesus Christ, I have not made another one in such a long time. And then there's going to be a discussion video. It's going to be pertaining to One Piece. So yeah, that should be fun. Anyway, speaking of fun, on to the video. Go. On planet Vegeta, years before its destruction, an incredible child was born. This child's name was Broly, the son of Paragus. This child was no normal one though. Even as a baby, Broly had a power level almost in the thousands, surpassing even his prince. It was an unprecedented level of power for a baby, and with no type of interference in its birth or training. The doctors had thought it was a good thing, but the King Gogeta, out of jealousy, decided to send the child on his own to an inhospitable planet with no intelligent life. Vampa. Paragus confronted the king, who made up lies to cover up his true intent, though he had seen right through them. To save his son, he hijacked the ship that Sailing Beats was already on at the time, and tracked the son down. He followed the pod his son was in, and told Beats that once he tracked Broly down, they'd just have them drop him off at a more hospitable planet, and he could go back to planet Vegeta. Beats understood, and they made their way to Vampa. When the two landed on the planet, they were confronted by multiple monster beasts that inhabited the planet that they had to flee from. When they found Broly, he was surrounded by some of their corpses. They had pieced together that with his power level of about 920, he must have transformed into a great ape and was able to kill them. They took Broly to the ship, but then saw that its main floater, which allowed them to fly, was broken, meaning they were stuck. Beast began to panic and said that they only had enough food for maybe 10 days. When he heard that, Paragus thought of killing Beats on the spot, but then thought that that wasn't the best idea, because he could be a help to not only fend off monsters, also thought by the time that they could get off the planet, he'd convince him to help overthrow the king. Not too long after they were stranded, one of the beasts would try and attack the three, and Paragus would shoot its ear off. They'd then run and escape from it. Then days later, Beats would be walking past that same place with Broly, and Broly would take the ear that he found on the ground and turn into a makeshift garment that he wrapped around his waist. The child nicknamed the monster Ba, and while it would take a while, they're training with it, Broly would wind up forming a friendship with him. Paragus wouldn't like the fact that Broly was making friends with it, but while he was going to go kill Ba, Beats would stop him, telling him that, with Ba, they'll have a monster beast on their side, and Broly gets a strong training partner. It's a win-win. Ba wouldn't like Paragus, but he'd be fine with Beats, and wouldn't try to attack them. So, the three lived together up until 2 years before the Tournament of Power. One day, while the Saiyans were eating, they saw 2 small space pods landing near where they were. They then flew over to get closer, thinking that they might actually have someone that could get them off the planet. The pod landed and the Saiyans were there to see who came out. It was Chilai and Lemo. Paragus and Beats ran over to them and expressed how happy they were to see other people. They explained that a long time ago, they accidentally crash-landed onto the planet, and the ship was damaged so they couldn't leave. Then they asked who they were. They gave their names, and the 2 off-worlders, at least for the Saiyans, explained that they were a part of a group called the PEF. the Planet Exploration Forces. Their job was to scout out planets, and they check for life, whether it be plant, animal, or person. After the initial gloss over a planet, they would call over more forces to kill or capture animals, and sell the animals or their parts and would sell what was growing there. They basically scalped the planet for all it was worth. Lemmo then said, "You guys can maybe join the force if you like. While flying overhead we saw some huge monsters. If you've managed to survive here as long as say you have, you could probably join the extermination force that deals with the wildlife." Just as he got finished speaking though, a huge spider creature somehow was able to sneak up on them. Chilai and Lemmo began to panic, but Paragus simply yelled for his son. Broly heard the call and jumped towards the spider beast, and with one kick was able to knock it far, far away. At seeing the display of strength, Lemmo was ecstatic, thinking he had found some really strong guys for the fleet, and he called the rest of them over. As they waited, they would ask each other questions, and Chilai would stare at Broly, being smitten at his strength, and she thought he was kinda cute. The ship was then seen landing on the other end of the planet, and they flew over to rendezvous. As they flew, Paragus conversed with Beats about the plans of rising through the ranks and taking over the force, so they could one day get revenge on Frieza and Vegeta, which, after all this time, Beats was actually in agreement with. Then, as the ship once again came into view, Broly saw something that infuriated him. The forces that were landed were shooting at his friend, Ba. He then rushed ahead of everyone else and began to try and defend his friend. Broly would have no shot caller here, so there was no way to restrain him unless you wanted to try and hold him back. And if you did, good luck. He then began to go crazy on the PEF, so his father and Beats would rush behind him trying to hold him back and calm him down. Luckily, he wasn't too far gone yet, so it was able to work, but Paragus then saw an opportunity. He yelled at the members of the PEF that he was to be made the captain of their ship. If he wasn't, he'd have Broly go back on his rampage. Now knowing that none of them could beat the brute, they agreed to the old man's terms. And as the new leader of the force, he asked how many other ships they had and explained that they were a small organization. This was their only one, besides some space pods that they would send out so people could explore beyond this ship. Paragus said he'd have to fix that and renamed the PEF the Paragus Force. During his time as new leader, he would express his desire to overthrow Frieza and Vegeta, but would be told that they were both dead. Paragus would be surprised and feel strange that his grudges had now just suddenly disappeared, though he'd just decided that he was going to pick up where they left off, and he'd take up the business of sending planets. He'd be able to clear out most planets with his forces, but most importantly, his son. During his time as leader, he'd recruit more and more forces to build up a new empire. As they took more information and technology, they made their equipment better and would make their own scouters. Also, Broly would develop a close relationship with Chilai and make a good friend in Lemmo. One day, while looking for a new planet, one of the soldiers requested a sing with Paragus. Beats, his now right-hand man, would go to meet with the soldier on his behalf. The soldier had learnt of a planet that had minerals that could suppress a person's energy when they came in contact. Those were useful for two reasons. First, they could be used to deter their enemies. And second, if necessary, they could be used on Broly. Beats would notify Paragus, and after hearing about it, scouts were sent out to search for this planet. It was eventually confirmed the place was real. Its coordinates were sent to the main ship. After landing on the planet, which was known as Planet Masala, Paragus would send out soldiers, but not Broly, and he'd tell the forces to avoid killing the people as much as possible. This was because after taking over the planet, he had not only taken the power-suppressing substance known as Gogeta that had already been dug up, but made the people who lived there mine more. They became his slaves. With these new minerals, they'd be made into jewels that were integrated into Broly's clothing. After a while of his rule, The Paragus force was doing pretty well for itself. Though, one day, their luck began to turn, as they wound up crossing paths with another spaceship, one belonging to the Frieza force. Paragus and Beats would instantly recognize it, and Paragus would yell, "I was told that Frieza was dead! Why do I see one of his ships before me?" Some of the people there assured him that Frieza was dead, or at least, he was supposed to have died. As they kept trying to assure him, a message was sent to the ship that read, "Lord Frieza demands entry onto your ship." Paragus began to sweat, while his forces told him that it must be a hoax. He told them that he would just let the person claiming to be Frieza on board, but he and Broly would be on watch, and would see who it actually was. As the person claiming to be Frieza was granted access onto the ship, when Paragus saw him, there was zero doubt. Frieza truly had returned. Fearing the tyrant's power, he bowed to the ground and instructed Broly to do the same. "Lord Frieza, I was told that you had died." Frieza walked over to Paragus and said, An obedient little monkey. Though it would seem that you have done quite well for yourself." Paragus thanked him, and Frieza went on to say, "I was killed, but through certain circumstances, I have returned." Frieza looked over to Broly and asked Paragus about him. He told him, "That's my son, Broly. He's also the strongest of my forces." Frieza mulled over the information and then thought of a plan. He told Paragus, "Say, Paragus I think your name was, how would you like to join forces with the Emperor of the Universe?" Paragus looked up as sweat covered his forehead like glaze on a donut. He told him that he would be honored and once again bowed. He was really glad to be allied with someone as strong as Frieza, but he also knew he had no other choice in the matter, so he had to play his cards right. Frieza hooked the Paragus force up with larger ships and even better equipment. Paragus would be given more men and would be one of Frieza's head commanders and closest subordinates. After working under Frieza for a bit, he was ordered to meet privately with the Emperor. He went to his chambers and closed the doors behind him. Frieza then explained what he was planning when he recruited Paragus. Sure, he wanted to add on more strength, but he also had something else in mind. He wanted to basically do the plan from the original Broly movie. Basically, he wanted to trick the Z-Fighters by telling Vegeta that a new planet Vegeta and kingdom for him to rule had been colonized, and he was to sit on the throne and rule. Frieza would use the same planet that was being used to mine the Gogeta ore to be used as the fake planet Vegeta, and had a hollow palace be built. He would also use his men as fake subjects. Everything would be set up and Paragus would take some men, including Broly, and ship to Earth. Frieza would tell his commander the city to which the Saiyans were located, and they landed outside of it. The fleet then powered up to try to lure the Saiyans to them. At the same time, Goku and Vegeta were training at a place Bulma set up so the rivals could train, and Beerus and Whis also hung out there and ate food at. As their fists clashed, the two then sensed a sudden burst of power. "What was that?" Goku inquired, confused. "Maybe it's Frieza and his goons come to invade," Vegeta said in an annoyed tone. "After all, because of you, he's out in the galaxy doing as he pleases." The two started bickering, but then Beerus spoke up and told him that they needed to shut up and deal with the problem. Goku agreed, and he got a lock on the key signatures he felt, and put a hand on his best buddy's shoulder for an instant transmission to it. The pair were then facing the likely invaders, or at least they thought they were invaders, and asked who they were and what their business was with Earth. Paragus called over Beats, Broly, Chilai, and Lemo. They walked up to Vegeta and all kneeled. Paragus told Vegeta that he and his son Broly were Saiyans that avoided the destruction of their planet, since they were on a different one at the time. When asked why, he lied and said that they were on the planet Vampa with the intent to have Broly train against the monster beasts of it, and Beats was the one flying the ship. Vegeta felt suspicious and asked about their armor and why they had scouters. Chilai then spoke up and told him about how Paragus took over the old PEF and as they gained power, they gained new technology, including engineering their own scouters. Paragus then said that the armor was a memento to their old armor, and after explaining that, the Z fighters, including Gogeta and Trunks, would have appeared, feeling the strong ki. Paragus became nervous seeing so many people, but Frieza had already explained that even with the rest of Earth's warriors tagging along, they take them out with the element of surprise as well. Paragus put on a fake smile and told them that he was glad to see so many people that would be able to witness the new planet Vegeta. Before they boarded though, Goku walked up to Broly, looking him up and down and said, "Hey, you look like a pretty strong guy. Wanna fight?" Paragus would rush in front of his son and tell Goku to save the fighting for after they arrived at planet Vegeta. They then board the ship, and during the flight, Goku would ask about Broly's jewels, and he found out that they were used to limit his power, making him even more excited to fight him. They then land, and after the journey, they'd be shown around the planet. Goku and Vegeta would be shown around by Paragus, and Broly would show around the rest of the Z Fighters. While touring the planet, Broly would show the Z Fighters the mines, and right as they got there, multiple Frieza and Paragus Force soldiers would ambush them, and before they could react properly, Broly would burst his aura, causing the warriors to fly back. The foot soldiers would be manageable, but Broly's presence would make the battle that much harder. Gohan would then fly over to the kids and tell them to sneak off to fuse, and he'd take on Broly himself. The two flew off, and he rushed at Broly. Gohan would have an advantage at first, but Broly would fall into Ikari and be rapidly increasing during the fight. Luckily, just as it seemed that Broly was beginning to gain, a ring appeared around him and squeezed him tight. Then he felt something crash into him. It was none other than Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks. He was given a thumbs up by Gohan and told that it was good timing. The two then began to pummel Broly, and since he was constantly getting hit from multiple sides, he couldn't take the time to improve. They then go for the finishing blow, but then, just as they were about to, Broly would explode in anger and power alike. For a brief moment, his hair spiked up and turned gold. As he rushed toward the two, he hit them at the same time, then slamming them down and beginning to pummel them. As he did, the Kajula he was wearing glowed bright, and a bright blue light enveloped his body, causing him to begin to fall back to base. The battered rest of the Z Fighters tried to take advantage of the moment it advanced, but Broly blasted them away. He'd then move away from the scene to try and get a hold of his ki again. Meanwhile, during Goku and Vegeta's tour, they were being shown the inside of the castle. As Broly's fight with the Z Fighters began to ramp up, that's just when they get to the top of the castle. Goku and Vegeta had only just begun to sense the fight then, but before they could do anything, Paragus had swung open the doors to the throne room, rushing in as soon as he did. He went to the side of the one sitting on the throne, Frieza. So he wouldn't be found, the Emperor learned to mask his ki, and when seeing the two Saiyans arriving, he blasted multiple death beams at them. Goku was able to react quick and deflected the blasts. That wasn't all though. The servants began to remove their disguises, revealing Frieza Force armor, and started blasting. Both Saiyans were able to deflect the blast and start disposing of the soldiers, but then Frieza went gold, and both he and Paragus joined the fight. As the fight raged on and the soldiers fell, another power could be felt quickly advancing toward the throne room, and it busted through the wall, revealing itself as Broly. He rushed at Goku, who was in blue, and began to fight, and Vegeta went for Frieza, Paragus taking the back seat. As the battles went on, they went beyond the castle as they busted through the walls, and Paragus followed along. During Goku's fight with Broly, he was already in blue, and when he felt his friend's ki go away, he recognized that Broly was involved somehow, and decided to just go all out so he could check on them. He was absolutely dominating. And during Vegeta and Frieza's fight, they were somewhat relative in blue and gold, but Vegeta fully intended on killing Frieza here and now, and went beyond the limits of the power of Super Saiyan Blue for the second time since the Tournament of Power. He blasted Frieza away and powered up to his maximum, and beyond that, transforming into Super Saiyan Blue Evolution. He rushed at the Emperor and began to clap cheeks. Frieza wasn't a match, and upon seeing that, Paragus rushed toward the fight to try and help. Frieza saw him coming and formulated a plan. When Paragus got close enough, Frieza blasted him through the chest, and as the commander fell, Frieza shouted to Broly, "Oh no, Broly! Your father was hit by one of Vegeta's stray blasts!" Broly, who was on his last leg, heard that and saw his father falling to the ground, lifeless. At seeing this, Broly went berserk. His ki began to rise along with his rage, and as it did, the Gogeta began to try and suppress him, but he kept powering up, and as he transformed into the full power legendary Super Saiyan, skipping normal Super Saiyan and going straight to green, the Gogeta glowed brighter and brighter, his aura being flushed and blue, until Broly's green and Gogeta's blue began to swirl together, and the gems burst, letting him use his full strength. He conquered the gem suppression, and yet he still had the blue glow around him. This was part of Frieza's plan. He didn't know how powerful Broly was, especially since he was being limited by the gems, and thought that since he knew that with rage came power with Saiyans, he could see his full power and use him as a distraction. Broly rushed towards Vegeta and started mercilessly pummeling him with a barrage of punches. Vegeta began to try to fight back, and Goku came from behind, kicking Broly, and then Vegeta nailed him in the gut with a punch. Before they could overwhelm him though, he was able to shoot out green blasts of energy from all sides, causing the two to be hurled away. This time, they went back in, but they coordinated their assault together. The fight went similar to the original in the Broly movie, with Goku even having to go Kaioken times 20, but Broly would keep making huge leaps in power. And not only was he making those huge leaps, but with every punch Broly dished out, the two felt as if some of their power disappeared, and Goku guessed that had something to do with that blue glow. As they fought it became apparent that the two would need a big increase in power, so they could quickly overwhelm their foe. Goku suggested something, fusion. Vegeta didn't want to, but he agreed that they didn't have much of a choice. The problem was, though, that they didn't have the Potara. If they were going to use that stupid dance the kids used, then they'd need time, something that they didn't have. And just as he said that though, two beams that made an X separated the duo, Broly, and right after, Frieza was sent flying into Broly. The three who were responsible then revealed themselves as Goten, Trunks, and Gohan. Both Goten and Trunks had taken the least amount of damage, and with Gohan, Yamcha was able to pick Gohan up and give him enough ki to move. The three then moved to back the two up. Broly was occupied with throttling Frieza, so that gave Goku and Vegeta time to do the fusion dance. Everyone but Gohan flew far away, though he did distance himself from Broly, but wanted to make sure that he couldn't intervene with his dad and Vegeta. Then the pairs of fathers and sons flew away, and once they were far enough, began to try to initiate the fusion. Since they not only had Goku to try and coach, but Goten and Trunks, who had basically mastered the fusion dance and could point out any mistakes, Goku and Vegeta were able to nail the dance first try. They began to combine in a great burst of swirling orange and blue energy, and then they were fused. The kids were amazed at the fusion's power, being stronger than Gotenks, and asked what they called it. The new fusion then said,
"I'm Gogeta!"
He then sped away in a flash, visiting the mines he could find. Back to Broly wrecking Frieza, he had knocked him away, and just as he was about to rush in for another attack, Gogeta suddenly appeared, kicking away Frieza, and then kicking Broly in the jaw. He appeared with Gogeta in both his hands, under his pits, and with one in his mouth. Muffled, he told him, I'm willing to bet that blue glow and those punches are able to sap energy are due to you overpowering these babies. How about I do the same?" He then began to power up, and once again, the gemstones began to glow and try to suppress him. But he was generating so much power and so quickly that, like Broly, the gems wound up exploding, and the blue light merged with Gogeta's aura. He then spit out the leftover shards from his mouth as he stood there, as a Super Saiyan God. "I thought this would make more sense with the blue glow. What do you think?" Broly just rushed towards him, with a grand haymaker that Gogeta simply kicked away, and then he kicked him in the face. When Broly once again tried to rush at Gogeta, he simply said,
Tisk, tisk, tisk. You sure do pack a punch, but it seems you aren't the brightest. Here's a little something to take home.
As he began dodging.
It seems you learn to become more powerful as we fight. Combine that with those straining fists, and that's a dangerous combo. How will I combat that, you may ask? Simple. I just gotta move faster and hit harder.
He then slipped out of sight and appeared in front of his opponent's stomach, sending punches faster than the eye could see and blasting him away, but teleporting to where he would get sent flying to, and repeating. He basically was treating him like a pinball. And after he got done playing for a while, the fusion decided to teleport high into the sky and rain ki blasts which smothered Broly. As a last resort, when he clearly wasn't going to win, Broly concentrated a huge mouth blast with all of his power. In reaction, Gogeta concentrated his power in one last attack as well, including the power dampening ability of Gajula. He focused the power into his fist. As he flew towards the blast, it took shape into a dragon. Gogeta flew through the inside of the blast, but as his attack took shape, the blast completely fizzled out around him as he yelled, The blue dragon was about to make contact. Before it could, Gogeta heard 3 loud yells of, "Wait! Please stop!" He looked over and saw 3 people on their hands and knees, begging him not to kill Broly. He decided not to, and to hear them out. So he simply blasted the berserker out of the sky, him being all out of energy anyway. He then began walking over, and as he did, he diffused back into Goku and Vegeta. The 2 walked over and listened to the 3 groveling on the ground, those 3 being Chilai, Lemo, and Beats. They begged them not to kill the now unconscious Broly, and explained that he was just following orders from his father, who he was very loyal to. Beats then told them that, as the second command of the Paragus force, he would attain leadership due to Paragus' death. He told them that as long as they provided them protection from Frieza, that the Paragus force would never confront them again. In fact, they'd have an ally in them. Oh wait, right, Frieza! Vegeta and Goku forgot about him. Vegeta flew over to the tyrant's body and used the Big Bang attack to completely incinerate the now mangled Frieza's body, cleaning up Kakarot's mess and settling his grudge once and for all. The 3 on the ground thanked him for getting rid of Frieza. Goku then told them to get up and that they were free to go on the condition that they left innocents alone and didn't continue the act of killing life on planets and selling those planets that they most likely would have been doing while working along with Frieza. They also had to free anyone that they had enslaved, like the people of the planet that they were on, added Gohan. Beats had no problem and revealed that he actually had plans to colonize planets, but still let people live there. The forest would still find ways to reap profits though. Goku agreed and said that for now, he had other plans for Broly. Then, after the fake Planet Vegeta debacle, Broly would be waking up bandaged in a hospital bed. It would turn out that he was actually at a place called Capsule Corp, which was explained to him by Chilai and Lemo, both waited beside him while unconscious. They told him about how after his roid rage, his father was found dead, killed by Frieza, who was also rightfully killed. 2 kids had then merged and took out the soldiers who were originally Frieza Force, and instead of him getting finished off, he was brought to the planet that they were on now, Earth. A deal was made about how the new leader, Beats, would reform the now once again PEF, and Broly would be taken to Earth to train his power, and he could join up with the fleet later if he wanted. Chilai explained that her and Lemo didn't want to let him go alone, and tagged along as one of the warriors teleported them and the other Earthlings back to the planet. Broly then asked, "Who was the one that did all this?" Just as he asked that, the door came open, as an orange gi, goofy grin, and spiky hair could be seen, and their owner saying,
Hey, it's me, Goku!